Like I've been putting tunnels up for 7 years, helping a ton of people, and those in walls are the coolest in walls I've seen.
All right, folks, it's Nick. I'm here with Carl Binger, Michael Bell. We're in hour 16 of the podcasting today. Wanted to, while I had both of you here, go over some of the differences between low tunnels, cat tunnels, and hoop houses. Carl, you have all three. Low tunnels, cat tunnel on your side. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's get after it. The thing I like about low tunnels is it's, to me, the very first taste that somebody can easily and affordably get into growing undercover without the worry and expense of either one of the next two structures. It's a simple hoop. We have Bootstrap Farmer has a bunch of new upgrades to make these real versatile, and the cross connectors and the snap clamps and everything else. I guess I should describe what a low tunnel is. We are setting this up for some basic stuff. So a low tunnel at its basic is a set of hoops that you're able to attach frost blanket, shade cloth, insect netting, to some degree, a little plastic on.
Shade cloth, whatever.
Yeah. Any type of cover that the season calls for.
Literally just over the size of your structures or your whatever, your raised bed or whatever you're at. Yeah. A couple feet tall.
And you could do a single row or you could do a wider one.
Yeah.
We'll show some pictures.
Yeah. So the first year I learned or started using these, I was sold. Unfortunate was after I had already installed my first high tunnel. If you were to ask me the second question, what would you do over or what would you do different? I would have started with them. You know, I did it the other way around. I didn't really put two and two together. But the first year, I remember we had carrots that just were not doing well. And then I had two other beds, and I made these low tunnels.
This is the night of carrots, man. I know we're spanning several weeks on the podcast itself, but we have talked about carrots for 4 hours.
Yeah. Well, these carrots have a testimony because I had 4 beds of carrots and 2 that were not under a low tunnel and 2 that were. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, what's the difference going to be? And it was night and day difference from, you know, the tops didn't even thrive over winter. We still have a winter here in North Texas, and it was pretty cold that winter too. You know, we got down a few nights where
was this that first year that you and me were jacking around with this stuff outside?
Yeah, it was.
That's what I love about this is we have footage of his entire farming adventure from day one almost.
Yep. And every next thing was like iteration was like, I'm just like, this is it. This is going to be it, man. This is all I need to do. And I've nailed it. But anyway, so it was, I had just that revelation, I guess, that year of that, because I literally had 4 beds right next to each other, and our low tunnels would span 2 of our beds. So we do 30-inch beds, just raised in the ground. Anyway, but yeah, so great.
Please leave that in.
You know, I had a great experience the first year I used them, and so then we started doing them, you know, there for the next couple of years, even until we had more. You know, could afford more indoor growing space. So great first, you know, for a first time gardener. Like if I were just go back just to gardening, you know, that's what I would do. And if I had to sell my farm for some reason, I would put those in my backyard and be able to get a few extra months out of the growing year.
Yeah, there's no reason not to do this
super
in any
cheap.
garden.
I mean, super cheap, right?
It lasts forever. It's a one-time cost.
Right.
And I don't want to get into like the super technical stuff because we've already shot videos on that. There's a whole low tunnel series that people can watch in which we talk about don't use a sheet, use an actual thing and the whys of that. But it's, for me, this conversation is more of like, does this make sense to scale up as you go? Low tunnels being the very first thing that you would do. And it's good to hear that you saw such a critical difference between the 2 carrots, both covered and uncovered. Because when you look at it the very first time, you're like, this is not going to do, this is ridiculous. It's not going to do anything. But man, it does. To keep that level of moisture off and then the frost off, which hurts the plants, damages the plants, and in turn damages the rest of the crop. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it kept the soil warm. I mean, I remember some mornings I would forget to open up the ends, and I would just be walking by and just seeing all the condensation and almost like steam inside there. And I'm like, oh man, I got to go open that up. But the soil temperature was 20 degrees difference usually, you know, to the bed that was exposed. So it was a good experience and still is.
Yeah. So yeah, I had the same same positive, reaction to them. I use them a lot during the spring to start seeds.
Right.
Peas, like sugar snap peas, can take pretty cold temperatures and they sprout once the soil warms up. But if it's outdoors, the soil doesn't warm up as fast. So a lot of times the week before I plant the sugar snap peas, for example, I'll put the plastic on and cover it up and leave it covered up for a week. And then that just raises the soil temperature
That's
literally
smart.
20 degrees. And then I plant and leave them shut till they germinate.
Well, there's a lot to that statement in that, yes, this crop can take a freeze, but if you're also babying this thing along a little bit better, it's going to start out faster. It's going to produce better without that initial shock to some degree. I mean, some of these plants will get stunted.
Yeah, and what's great about it too is we live in Texas, so literally we can have a cold night in the end of March. I mean, it's nothing for us to get a 33, 34 degree night into March, and we've already planted, even tomatoes. Like,
right.
I plant my tomatoes in high tunnels usually around spring break, and then I'll go in if we get like last year we had a real cold end of March. I'll put the low tunnels inside the high tunnel and put plastic over
That's
it.
what I did every year.
And I've never lost a tomato to cold that I've covered up.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works great. And the good thing about it is, like I've said in other interviews tonight, I started with no money, and you can start with almost no money with these things. I mean, it's nothing compared to what like a hoop house cost or a high tunnel or something like that. You can start $100 will make you a nice long tunnel, low tunnel to get you started. And like I just said, it's a one-time cost because they last forever. It's a electrical conduit that's real high grade, sturdy stuff.
Hoop bender and some plastic, and you're set. I think the other thing though, in the summer months, for especially the hotter climates, and even the cooler months, the versatility to be able to use the same hoops for not only you're making a little mini greenhouse, in the plastic. That's what we're just have been talking about. But then in the summer months here in Texas, we put shade cloth over them for certain crops. And then this last, we had a freaky freeze on Halloween. I had to put frost blankets on our beans, in October. So they're very versatile. Same EMT tubing and we use we were buying these more expensive clamps, and now just clothesline, the wooden old clips, they work just as well. So I've used all kinds of those big black paper clip type things.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much to attach.
I need to get you some snap clamps.
I know. Yeah, I didn't even know you had them until you started chatting. So I definitely have some growing up to do in that area, apparently.
So if you told me a year or two ago that I was going to be talking about the next structure, I would have called you crazy, because I'm not a fan of cat tunnels because of how they are. But we're coming out with a new cat tunnel about the time that this comes out, and it's a bridge in the gap between the low price point of a DIY structure and everything that goes on with that versus one of our all metal hoop houses that's all inclusive, all metal, all USA, and delivered. So the cat tunnel is, to me, an enhancement. Or at least our cat tunnel is an enhancement to what's currently out there. A little bit stronger, a lot stronger. And then, as you saw today, the end wall configurations that we have, and that's just a big swinging door, like a butterfly door, so to speak. I like this, and because you don't have that pressure of having to spend so much money up front for what a hoop house is. We're going to get to that in a minute, but this is a nice bridge in between. I've invested in a low tunnel. I've grown my crops. I've made some money. I have a little bit of income to invest back into the farm. What's the next step? It's going to be the Caterpillar tunnel. Difference is there's no hip boards. There's no baseboards. The ground post situation is a little bit different. And then what, Julian, about 30% of a hoop house is tied up in the end walls.
Yeah.
So by doing the end walls the way that we're doing, and other people the way they do their end walls, you're cutting 30% right off the top. It's also less expensive for us to ship. So there's a lot of inherent cost savings there. The trade-off is it's not as strong if you're in a high wind area. I don't know if I would still suggest it. If you're in a high snow load area, I would look into additional bracing or something like that. But You primarily use a cat tunnel. You have 2 of our new cat tunnels on your property, a 14-foot and a 20. Michael, I'm going to start with you because you have quite a bit more experience from a year-over-year standpoint with them. First question I know we're going to get is, how robust are these things in the storms?
I've had cat tunnels. That was the first thing I bought 7 years ago when I started my farm, was one cat tunnel. And I've never had an issue with a cat tunnel, excuse me, tearing up or having issues with it because I didn't do something right. Every issue I've had, it was my own fault. Like the first time I threw the strap over it and back and forth, I didn't know it would loosen up as the sun hit it the first time.
Sure.
And I went back the next day and my plastic was on the ground. Live and learn. I should have kept tightening it. But anyway, so I love cat tunnels. I tell everybody, first thing you buy after you have your land and you sold some product and you've got some cash, you buy a cat tunnel. They're my absolute favorite thing about the farm. You start stuff way earlier. Your stuff lasts a lot longer in the winter. I always tell people it's not about the temperature that the cat tunnel keeps the plants at. It just keeps them dry. I always tell people a frosty 32 will destroy lettuce. Not the taste of it, but it'll give it tip burn. Whereas a dry 25 lettuce is fine.
Mm-hmm.
So what the cat tunnel does is it keeps the lettuce dry. Doesn't keep the temperature raised quite so much when it comes to lettuce. In my experience, it's not the temperature, it's the dryness. It's the same thing with tomatoes too, from what I've seen. I've had tomatoes live at 25 degrees inside, when it was outside, inside my tunnel. And I know it was below 35 in my tunnel, but it was perfectly dry. So that's the biggest things that keeps them dry. And on the flip side, during the summer, it also keeps everything dry from when you get those major storms that blow through and you get the wind and you get a half an inch in 15 minutes of rain and everything floods out. And if everything was planted outside, it would just float away and destroy your beds. Those cat tunnels keep everything. It sounds simple, but just good. That's like a simple way of saying it. It just keeps everything the way it's supposed to be.
So, Carl, when I first met you, you had one hoop house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna count your gutter connect. Your 3-bay gutter connect is 3 separate ones because you built them independently.
Right.
So now we're up to 4. You had the Gothic all metal hoop house of ours. So that's
5.
That's 5. So tunnels 6 and 7 for you are our 14-foot cat tunnel, 20-foot cat tunnel. You're on record saying that you eventually would like to grow everything under cover.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the most economical ways to do it, given where your area, given the wind protection that you have, given that you have so much infrastructure around these things to kind of help buffer it. Plus, I'm very pumped with what we've been able to do with the cat tunnel as far as strengthening things up. You've used one of our cat tunnels for about 6 months. The other one, 3 months, 4 months? It's a blur.
Mm-hmm.
What are your initial reactions, and how would you compare and contrast those between the hoop houses that you currently have, any of them, because they're all, roughly the same, versus the two?
So I just like what Michael said. I would recommend anybody and everybody get a cat tunnel to start with. If you can afford to do a hoop house, a hoop house to me is also like a greenhouse. It has end walls and it has heat and ventilation, where a cat tunnel doesn't have the end walls, doesn't typically have ventilation. It's manual ventilation. So you lift up the sides, open up the end walls.
But you could get a roll up side bundle and make your own if you wanted.
And that's another point I was going to make is the cat tunnels. What I like about them, one, I don't have a concern with them being any less durable. Maybe the 20-foot might be because it's a lot taller than the 14-foot wide one. But we get some pretty radical winds,
And that's also why that comes with a little bit more bracing from the get-go from us.
Right. And so we're in North Texas. We get some strong winds. Last year we had a massive tree fall and land on our house, and the structures all, stayed in place. So been very impressed with both from a economical standpoint. Like if I was just focused on money and not worried about, if I didn't have to heat the structures, I would just do all cat tunnels. But in our context, we have some tunnels that we heat that are fully, what we would classify as a greenhouse, and those sides never come up. Whoops. They just constantly, they're bolted, buttoned down all the way around, right?
Mhm.
And so we just use ventilation to cool them, and then we have a heater, obviously. So, but the cat tunnels they're enjoyable to be in. One, they're simple, they're economical, low maintenance.
Went up a hell of a lot quicker.
Yeah, went up real easy, and they're some of the bigger structures we have, like the Gothic. I have to get up if I need to get up to that peak to do something. I've got to probably rent some equipment or risk my life on a ladder getting up on some of those. So these structures are pretty simple, and I would say that they would handle snow load just like anything else, especially because we've got ours at 4 feet apart. And I mean, there's really no difference from all our other structures. They've really proven themselves to me. I enjoy them. They're just, I enjoy them, and they're enjoyable. That sounds cliche.
You're also the first place that we tried out the irrigation, kits on. I've seen these beds progress over the course of the last year, and everything just really seems to take off and not have any issues. And then I know you also have shade cloth on yours as well. So the same principles apply. You have a cover, you need to cover it with shade.
Right.
Still do that, no trouble.
And like Michael said too, I mean, we might have to do that this winter. Is we may put a low tunnel inside our high tunnel
for sure.
The cat tunnels. We have some certain crops that are going to be a little sensitive to some of the likely winter storms that we're going to have.
And with the butterfly doors on our tunnels, if you had one of those unseasonably warm days, you crank those open, and you have the same benefits as you would a roll-up side, little bit less, but you have such a volume of opening that you can pull off.
Yeah. And then again, like what you said earlier, alluded to, is the upgrades, the capabilities. Like if you start with a low tunnel, then you get yourself a cat tunnel. There's nothing stopping you from turning that cat tunnel into a full-blown hoop house or greenhouse. You put some roll-up sides, put some bottom baseboards on, hip boards, roll-up sides, netting. Like we're already thinking, like, do we want to put screen netting, on the sides, So it's
all that's possible.
Yeah.
And I like the modular capabilities of it.
Well, speaking to that, I will say, because I have done this, they're easily to move. Like, it's not the most fun thing in the world to do.
How often have you moved, other than moving the farm? But do you ever move it?
No, I don't have to. No, I don't move them. But if you do, because I know so many people might start out on leased land.
Right.
That's not a problem. Like literally, you put it up, grow 2 years, buy you some land, and then you take it down. And it takes some time, but it's not hard work. It's just time. You unscrew everything, put it in a truck, haul it to your new farm, put it up. You can do it in a day. You can take one down and put it back up in a day, easy. So that's a huge advantage. Like I said, for people that's thinking about leasing and they're kind of worried about buying a tunnel, don't even think twice about it. And on a non-business side with a tunnel, there's nothing more peaceful than working in a tunnel when it's raining.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll just go stand in my tunnel sometimes when it's raining. Yeah. Because it's so peaceful. Or you can actually work. Like I work all the time in the mornings when it's raining, and I'm thinking, God, if I didn't have my tunnels, I wouldn't get anything done today.
Right.
But I stay dry. I stay warm. During the winter, it's actually funny. The first year I had ice and I was inside the tunnel, it was actually warm. Like not just warmer than outside, it was warm. And I couldn't figure out why. And I was looking up, it's the ice and the snow. It was actually acting as an insulator. So like it was actually keeping the tunnel warm. So you don't want to knock that snow and ice off unless it's a lot and you're worried about it collapsing, because that ice and snow acts as an insulation, a heat in.
From where we're at, because more than likely that thing's going to be burned off by noon anyway.
Yeah.
We do suggest that in the northern climates where snow is accumulating,
you get feet of snow,
and it's wet, you're going to have to get that off. It's a part of the maintenance. Like if you let that stuff pile up and freeze and pile up, it's getting heavier and heavier. You're gonna just like you would have an issue on your house with wood rafters. That's a lot of weight. That's not what it was designed for.
Oh yeah, I get that for sure. But in Texas, you get an inch of snow, leave it.
Right.
It'll keep things 10 degrees warmer.
Hoop houses. You've been to a lot of places with hoop houses. You've been in a lot of greenhouses. So I'm gonna come to you second. Now, of course, that's such an integral part of your operation. I'm gonna start with your propagation house, vented, heated, whole 9 yards. The gutter connects. You have a wet wall installed. The Gothic, you have powered ventilation, you have roll up sides, you have insect nets, all the bells and whistles. Your truss system is in there. Utilizing those different structures for different crops, different times of the seasons, different reasons, comparing and contrasting the cat tunnel. What are you more apt to use in the cat tunnel versus the Gothic or any of the greenhouses?
So, and again, this is all, the cat tunnels are relatively new for us. And so they're still a bright, shiny object for us. Like, we're excited about them because they're still new. And we've also been able to perfect some of our other stuff like bed making, bed preparation. And so these are kind of like my last children, you know what I mean? Like, you get better as parenting, So the last kids are receiving the most benefits because of all the experience from the other ones. And so we've kind of earmarked these to be used for smaller crops, basically, where we don't need ventilation so much because of those sides, right? The heat, they're staying out of heat. Like, we have a tomato house designed for tomatoes, which has the wet wall, because those tomatoes get super tall, right? I mean, 8-9 feet tall, or about 8 feet, I think, 7-8 feet in the Gothic.
You guys plant really dense, and so you do need
so we need that airflow
movement
in some of those to get some of that heat out. And so, like, next fall, or this coming fall rather, in 2024, the 14-footer is going to be in September. We're planting the entire, which we have 12 30-foot beds. So we have 3 sections, if you will, that are each 30 feet, that have 4 beds that are 30 feet long by 30 inches. Hopefully you can visualize that. But so there's 12 beds in that cat tunnel. And next September, we're just planting that entire thing. It's just going to be carrots. And then the dog tunnel will probably be succession for that. So lettuces, all of our normal stuff that we plant in the, every 2-3 weeks, we're planting carrots, lettuce, radishes, some salad greens, spinach, all those good things. Now, with that said, because the 20-foot cat tunnel has so much ventilation, we've learned that heat, our first tunnel was a hoop house, was pretty much a cat tunnel with end walls. Didn't have any ventilation or anything, rope system that has now been converted to a greenhouse. That we tried growing, tomatoes, and just didn't work too well. It's not tall enough. Then we had the gutter connect one, which is maybe 12 feet tall. And then we got the Gothic. And that Gothic, when we got that thing, I realized how important the heat, or the mass, right? How tall it is. And because on a given day, it's 100 degrees outside, I can go into all 3 of those structures. The hoop house, the first one, hottest. The gutter is, next hottest. Well, now with the wet wall off, that's a different story now with that on, rather. And then the Gothic is off the chart in terms of how it feels. It's a lot more comfortable in there. So all that being said, is the height of that cat tunnel, the 20-foot wide. I don't know how tall that thing is, but it's got to be around 12, 13 feet.
Yeah, I suppose it was 12.
Yeah, it just feels natural, or pretty comfortable in there. So I think it's going to be a natural fit for some, maybe more climbing, like cucumbers, maybe some tomatoes. I might even try putting in them this year.
Yeah, I could see some peas and things like that in there for sure. Where you can do a 6.5-foot trellis or something like that. Maybe nothing you're gonna lower and lean on, but definitely a trellising type of plant.
Something like very seasonal that I don't have to maintain all year, but so kind of as almost like an overflow from our tomato house. We can plant some more in there that might just only last for a couple months. Whereas our tomato house is tomatoes all year round, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
anything we missed?
Well, let me just so I don't feel bad about myself for not telling people. If it's 25 degrees outside and sunny for an hour or two and your tunnel's closed up, everything's dead. Like, just because it's cold outside, but if it's sunny, you have to raise those outside walls or an in wall or something. I've lost lots of money over the years thinking, oh, it's 27 degrees. It'll be fine. I'll wait a couple hours. I don't want to go do it right now. And I'll walk over there and I lift up the sides. My end walls are usually on for 4 or 5 months at a time. So I just raise up the side wall. I raise up that side wall, and that heat hits you like the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
And you look down and
everything's wilted.
Your lettuce is either dead or almost dead.
Well, you're asking the plant that's over time acclimated to the cold to then spike way up in the 90s and then go way back down to, like, it's just, you would not want that for a human, for a pet,
right,
for fish.
Yeah.
For
not
anything.
to mention, it's just hot.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand the greenhouse effect until you actually do the greenhouse effect and let that sun hit that plastic for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. And
In one of the earlier episodes that Carl and I were doing on this series, we talked about when somebody first gets a hoop house, they put the plastic up, and the very first time they go, see, you already know. So the very first time they witness how hot it gets, how fast, how nice it would be to capture that moment for somebody. But it's unbelievable the first time you experience it.
Well, it's not even when it happens. It's while you're putting the plastic on.
Yeah.
Like I helped the lady, Cindy, from the previous podcast that asked that question. I went and helped hers, and she's in there like we're pushing plastic and trying to make it straight and pull that corner and pull this corner. And she's like, Mike, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
It's so hot in here. And it was 9:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
but that sun was hitting it, and it just gets so hot so fast.
But it's also enjoyable. I mean, I still remember, and I still look forward to every new tunnel I put up to go stand inside of it. You know, especially when it's cold out.
It's like a new house.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, it's like 20 degrees outside,
Yeah.
and you can go out to your tunnel and grab a book. I mean, seriously, it is so comfortable when it's a super cold day out, just to go out and sit in there. So all of a sudden, you just got on vacation. You know?
Yeah, it's like in the tropics for a little bit.
So now I can't go do that because every time I go out there, all I see is work everywhere. I'm like, I'm not really going to be able to enjoy
All
grabbing a book.
all the weeds.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I intended for this one to be a short one. We have so much other information out there on Bootstrap Farmer's main page that I don't think we have to beat this one to death. But I did want to get two different perspectives, people that used all three and they have been around them for a while.
I didn't comment on the end walls, the butterfly walls.
Yeah.
Like I've been putting tunnels up for 7 years, helping a ton of people, and those end walls are the coolest end walls I've seen.
I appreciate it.
I've put up, I made my own end walls. I've copied YouTube end walls. I've tried your end walls that y'all come out with for the regular tunnels, and this is by far like you just pick it up, pin it, pull it down.
You didn't think that little man over there? That's
dude. It was the best design I've ever
Yep.
seen. I've still got a couple of questions, but obviously it's working for him. So check them out. They're really a game changer, I think.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time on this on behalf of all the farmers listed. Like, this channel's already been well received. We're recording this on the actual day it launched, and it's been a great day already. This is going to be a few weeks into it. Yeah, thank you very much for your expertise, particularly on the market gardening side of things. And I think over the course of the last few episodes that you two and Carrie have been involved with, there's a lot of examples that should make people feel a lot better about getting into things, knowing that you don't have to have all the answers at first, and you can grow into it, which is why I like the low tonal, the cat tonal, the hoop house as you scale up. And I think in your operation, being able to use all three, and in your operation, using two of those for such a long time with no plans for a hoop house, no desire for it, and no need for it at what you're trying to do. It just, I like it that there's a system for every budget, every scale, and the ability to pick and choose which ones you use for what crops and make the most sense. So just handy information to know. Appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. And that's it.